and we can chat about nonsense for half an hour.
We don't chat about nonsense, Sean. We chat about finely honed topics that are of significance and relevance to our listening audience and encourage them to make active decisions on their life.
I love that. I think
all planned for 5 minutes before we actually press record.
Well, that's the thing. It's an unscripted podcast, isn't it? It's an unscripted. Even the intro's got a different intro every episode.
Part of the fun.
Well, I've got one word written down here for today, and it says nostalgia. Is that what we're going to talk about? Is it?
I think let's go with nostalgia.
I think we've decided now. Well, let's talk about nostalgia.
I think that's it.
So, what is nostalgia? Let's start there, shall we? What is nostalgia?
What is nostalgia? Does anyone know what?
I think I know what I think it means.
Well, I tell you what it often is for me. It's often four guys in a bar chatting about the grand old days. I think Elton John wrote a very good song about nostalgia. I'm trying to remember what it was called, which was just Old Soldiers, I think it was called, or something like that. Just this idea of people catching up in a bar and remembering what it used to be like in the good old days. You know?
Well, Bruce Springsteen, as on your jumper, is one of the best at writing songs and telling stories about nostalgia, which actually, the meaning, which we like to do, we like
always
to do a couple of
have to.
Is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for a period in the past.
Yeah, a sentimental longing.
Yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, it's you're gonna like things in the past for merit, but also the fact that it's got something special for you. A great example for this is Friends. The show Friends. Honestly, I think it's as big as it is now because of nostalgia. It wouldn't, like, if it was to be out today, it wouldn't be successful. It just wouldn't be. It's not up to standard. But people love it and literally will die for it because of that fact. Because it's nostalgic.
It's a good point. Do you think that nostalgic viewpoint, not just about Friends, but generally, do you think it's more to do with the fact that the time that you're looking back wistfully on genuinely was that great, or is it more a point that the time you're in seems shit and you think that everything was better back then, or is it a mix of the two?
I think you romanticize the time that you spent a little bit, or you try and recreate it at least.
Definitely get that.
You guys are a little bit younger than me. Well done.
A little.
Is there a thank you? Is there a time limit on nostalgia, or is there a time when nostalgia kicks in? So can you be nostalgic, for instance, for 5 years ago, which would have been 2019 BC, before COVID, or do you have to go back 20 plus years, and that allows you to be nostalgic?
I'm nostalgic for a time before COVID, right enough. So I think it's probably okay.
How about actually being on that nostalgia about COVID itself, right? Because this is a really bizarre one. I'll give you a live
nostalgic
example.
COVID.
Right.
Wistful, sentimental longing for COVID.
Right, let me tie this in. So I'll say it again. So a sentimental longing or wistful affection for a period in the past, right? So hold that thought.
You know how some people say something and it's like, you need to explain yourself.
That's it. Now, COVID was, apart from getting into the fact that we're all duped and all the rest of it, never mind, it was a terrible period of time for everyone when you were in it. However, that bit that I was talking about there, that wistful longing, there was a period, now looking back on it, because the aftermath of COVID, there's been some really, really difficult times.
Oh, yeah.
Business-wise, people went through their own issues, yourself included, everyone got them, right? There was that little period where I've spoken to a lot of people where it was a case of just that feeling that everyone's in this together. There was a realization we can't do anything about it. Even if the arse has fallen out of the world, we're all in it together. And actually, the weather's great and we're spending time with family, going on these walks in the nice weather, coming together and doing things that you wouldn't, or having fun kind of games online and all that thing. Yeah. So you look back at it and thought, actually, wasn't all that really good? But you forget. This is what I was meaning by not COVID itself, but some of the things going on in it.
Yeah, I think without the death and suffering, it would have been a lot.
Yes. But you blocked that out, right?
Well, sort of, because fortunately, I didn't experience any of it.
Well, likewise, and that's my point.
Yeah,
I think if you had an elderly relative that you couldn't see, or a relative someone that you loved, and you were being stopped from seeing them for whatever reasons, were sort of put across at the time, then you're going to look at it just dreadfully, and rightly so.
Yeah,
but if you didn't, it's more those other bits get blocked out.
Yeah, I'm sort of.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm on board with you on this one. To be honest, I sort of agree with you in the respect of. I think COVID, certainly when we were in it, we all sort of realized things that were important to us, and we all slowed down a little bit.
That's the part. Those are the parts.
Now that we've sort of we've come out the other end of it.
Yeah, but you're talking about an incredibly short space of time.
I mean, it went on for a couple of years.
At the beginning, when we didn't realize that it was going to go on forever.
That's the only part.
And so while I might think, well, during those periods, I agree, those sorts of things were on people's mind, and we enjoyed picnics on golf courses and
all those things. They're the bits. Those bits.
But what happened afterwards, so surely has robbed us of any sort of nostalgia for that time. Thinking actually, we were dragged into something that was completely unnecessary and
ludicrous.
Totally. I can't really be nostalgic for that.
No, it's fair.
Yeah. Well, for instance, today, this is the 5th of June, depending on when anyone's listening to this, 5th of June, 6th of June, we're being nostalgic for D-Day.
For D-Day,
Operation Overlord and the beginning of the end of the Second World War, I suppose. And are we being is there sentimental longing for that? We're not. We're remembering it and commemorating it. But I doubt many people have any sentimental longing. And people are talking about the togetherness and the support and the feeling of nationhood and all of that type of thing that came from that. But that's not nostalgia. Is that nostalgia?
Well, is it though? Isn't it? Because if you read like a lot of autobiographies, or you listen to people of a certain age speaking, whether it be rock stars, movie stars, people from this country, but we can go through so many of them.
Sure.
They will look back and they'll compare what we've got now, and mostly around young generation, right? And they'll look back to the times in that post-war, during war, just post-war periods where, the cities were decimated, there was rubble everywhere, but the fun that they had, the togetherness, the childhood that they had. Now, looking back at it, saying it was great.
Just a cover story for protecting themselves, isn't it?
I think so.
The awful feeling.
So that's more of the wistful, it's that, it was great. And this was my point before. Is it a true reflection of what was before? Or is it just a case of, well, you're romanticizing it, or... Well, I think you've kind of clouded over some of the other elements.
I think that's a lot of the point, though, isn't it? That's what nostalgia is.
Yeah.
You sort of wear rose-tinted glasses for a lot of it. So,
well, that's interesting that you said rose-tinted glasses there. I was just thinking about the Pink Panther films.
The ones with Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers and so on, because you mentioned Friends earlier on, Sean. And I have this nostalgia for the Pink Panther. I remember my sides aching with laughter at Peter Sellers and all that. So we when they came out on DVD, nostalgic memories of DVD.
DVDs are even nostalgic.
I'm going to make a prediction before you move on there.
We watched these really.
They're going to come back.
Yeah,
we watched these really quite slow movies that weren't as funny as I remember them being, and so we create some sort of aura around these memories
which weren't real.
You're absolutely right. Now,
I agree with that.
Those auras could last a lifetime, right? For example,
if you don't revisit it.
Well, sort of and sort of not really. It depends, because I have a fondness for sort of old movies. And when I say old movies, I'm talking like 40s and 50s.
Okay.
For example, one of my favorite Christmas movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And that was like 1946 or something like that. But I've shared these thoughts with people saying that I've got a fondness for this. And he says, oh, you need to watch Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Now, my opinion of Citizen Kane, and I think it's largely accepted now, is it is an absolutely awful movie. It is terrible. But it was a massive deal back in the day.
Yeah, yes. Everyone was on about it as one of the best movies
I
ever.
hated it. I thought it was terrible. But that was just me. But those people that love it are nostalgic for it. It's something you see. For example, I've got a massive fondness for the TV program Father Ted. Now, watch it now, it's terrible. But to me, it's not.
So there's a moment in time for you. It's like remembering the smell of new mown grass and that song.
Something takes you on. It's pre-technology nostalgia is one that I think is big. We actually spoke about it in the last. I've heard myself saying to my kids, right? But it is, I tell you what it led from actually sitting through the telly and bear in mind this is Sky, Netflix, Prime, and what other shit is there? Disney Plus, Paramount, and the phrase was used, "There's nothing on."
Yeah.
and I said, well, you're actually the polar opposite. Yeah, there's too much on. And what it is, it's overstimulation.
Yeah,
I found myself saying, and I sound like a nostalgic kind of old person, it was like, do you know what? You know, you don't know you're born. You know, you're just completely missing out. Back in my day, which I did back in my day, we used to get excited at the weekend because your favorite band had released an album or a single, and you'd save up money, and you'd go and you get a burger. You get a burger, and you'd go and get your album. You couldn't wait to come and put it on in your ghetto blaster and listen to it, and play the whole thing through over and over again on a CD or a vinyl. And you guys don't have that. You don't have it because everything's touchable. And it was a better time. But how many times back then were you going, this is really pissing me off. I want to hear that song again. But I have to wait till it's on the radio. Or I want to keep listening to that, but I can't because I haven't got the CD. So is it...
So you're suggesting that in the old days, whenever they were, that TV programming and music was better because there was less space for it. No. I've got some sympathy for that. No. I think that's an image that's really potentially quite powerful, and it's a strong message. There was a comment by Katie Tunstall.
Oh yeah.
This week about somebody from Spotify, the boy that runs Spotify, who's a very good man, I understand. Saying that music was content, and she was saying music is not content. That's an insult to the creativity of musicians and songwriters and so on.
Which I agree with. That's a fair comment.
But
to him it is.
So there you went, you described Netflix, etc., etc., etc. So now we've got all this huge space which we have to fill with content.
Yeah. Okay.
Go back in time a little bit. There was a much smaller space. And there was competition for the content. So rubbish got squeezed out, perhaps?
And you're right there. You're definitely right there.
It definitely
I don't know.
There's more rubbish.
I just know that, that idea that you're trying to find something and there's masses available, but what you're trying to find something is something that's good. And that's
sort of.
Struggle.
Well, yes, but I want to add to that, actually. You're absolutely right. There's more shit on TV than there ever has been. Let's face it, there has, because there was less people to make it and there was less platforms to put it on. Absolutely. But I discovered something about 6 months ago where a TV program that I loved came on to, I think it was on Netflix or it might have been Amazon Prime. For the life of me, I can't remember. But they had released an episode a week, like they used to, way back when. They said new episodes every week. And you know what? I did not wait until they were all released to watch it. I watched it every single week, and I found myself getting excited to see what happens the next week.
As opposed to being pissed off that it wasn't available.
Exactly, yes.
That's interesting.
The reason that I wanted to do that, and I actually like doing it, is because I'd watch it all in like one night or 2 nights, and then I'd be done with it. But then I realized if I'd watched, 6 hours of TV in one night, the next day I'd be right where you're suggesting, Andrew, is there's fuck all on, and I can search every platform, but it's because I've already done it.
Yeah, and your head's kind of still on that. You were excited about the enjoyment of that, and you're looking for the next thing. It's that constant need now for stimulation and for instant gratification, I think. And I think that's where that nostalgia thing, certainly from my side, came back that, well, actually, you didn't so much get the instant gratification back then. You had to wait. And waiting was good. Waiting, in some instances, was a good thing. But again, I know for a fact at the time it would have pissed me off. And I would have wished for, which is probably why it's here right now, the ability to just touch a button and listen to what I wanted to listen to and watch what I wanted to watch. Yeah. If you were asked before it came out, would you like that? I think 99 people out of 100 would said, of course I would. I would love that.
Of course you would. But
I think that's interesting. There's a great story about the Sony Walkman that when the market tested it and said, how do you feel about the idea of being able to walk around listening to music? And people went, why would you want to do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I tell you what, you can look back on a Sony Walkman nostalgically, couldn't you? But you couldn't.
Well, just about every single program I've seen recently on the TV seems to have a Sony Walkman in it.
Damn right.
There's one on Netflix at the moment called Eric, which we've started to watch.
Oh, I'm just going
I haven't
to
seen
start
it
to
yet.
watch
I
that.
haven't seen it yet.
And the
looks
Sonny
good.
Walkman plays a part in that because, of course, the music they're
Thank you.
playing is from 1978-ish,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And so it's a moment in time.
But
And it seems to be a nostalgia for that. I mean, I just noticed, for instance, Paul Weller, ex of the Jam and Stargaze and Son, has released a new album called 66. I think it's because he's 66. And he's released it on a tape.
I heard him being interviewed about it
amazing.
the other day on Radio 2.
Amazing. But yeah, I mean, fast forward in a few years from the Sony Walkman.
Yeah.
Out comes the iPod, right?
Yeah,
In between there was a Discman. Well, exactly, right? But you would look back on a Sony Walkman and an iPod nostalgically, thinking that was a great piece of kit. I loved it. Where is it? I want it back. You wouldn't look back on a Zune, would you? No one
On a
does
what?
that. Exactly. And Microsoft had this
Oh yes,
competition
you're
for an
right.
iPod.
No, I
The
don't remember
Zune. So I think to reaffirm what nostalgia is, it's got to be successful, though, right? In the first instance, you couldn't look back on something that was unsuccessful nostalgically, could you?
Ooh, is it about?
Well,
It's more about impact than success. Impact.
I don't know. That's the answer. But like, look back at old tech, for example, like a record player. You mentioned record player earlier.
Oh, well,
There's one behind me right here.
yeah, I've got one also. Yeah.
But that's not an old one.
Oh, that.
No.
It looks like an
it's
old one,
old
but it's
tech.
really cool.
But the vinyl itself would be, it's from an older age. But I mean, it might be a new vinyl, but the concept is an old thing, right? Because I could very well, every single one of those vinyl records right there, I could stream on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've curated very carefully a list of music that I want to hear on vinyl for nostalgic reasons. I don't know why, but I've gone to great effort and cost to do this to myself for something that is in my phone. Someone explain that.
This is close to my heart, of course, listening to vinyl music. I think it's more complicated than that. We were sitting, funny enough, listening to Paul Weller's new album on vinyl around the corner here the other night. And talking about the fact that this is a really stupid story, okay? When I set up my vinyl system in the last house I was in, I thought, why do people always put the record deck in front of them? Because you have to then get up and change the record and so. But if you put it next to you, then it's really easy,
Yeah.
But of course, as soon as it's next to you, you're not looking at it because you look at the speakers. I thought, this is not working. I need to see the thing going round and round.
Yeah.
And it's this combination of things. When you stream, there's one thing happening.
Yeah.
But it's a combination of seeing, listening, picking up the cardboard album cover, and
It's
so
the
on.
overall experience.
So so when you were talking about successful, I actually wrote down meaningful. I think that this idea that nostalgia has to be meaningful, and for it to be meaningful, there has to be a lot more going on with it. Because you won't have, I don't think we'll have nostalgia for streamed music. Because
no, absolutely not.
I think you've hit the nail on the head with meaningful, because that explains when I was talking about earlier. I was going to get that CD or record, right, whatever it was, album or single. It wasn't just that. It was getting in the bus with my friends on a Saturday, going to Wimpy or Burger King or whatever, McDonald's, then walking down the shops with my buddies, then buying the record or the disc, then coming back. It was the day.
Yeah.
So it was the whole thing. You've hit the nail on the head. It's something meaningful as opposed to just the thing.
So the first time I did that and bought a 45 RPM single record, I have no nostalgia for the record that I bought. I can tell you what it was. It was Slade, Come On Feel the Noise. I have no nostalgia for that item, but I have nostalgia for the fact that it took me forever to choose which one I was going to spend my 75p on. And the fact that experience, as you're describing it, meant something to me.
But when does nostalgia get outweighed by convenience? Let me explain a little bit, right? Because going to a record shop and buying a vinyl and then bringing it home, being excited to listen to it, understandable. But I've given up on the concept of going to the cinema to watch a movie.
Do you know, I had as well, Sean, but I think this is something, again, I think things go full circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the ability to, you've got everything on hand.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's back to Andrew's point. It's a meaningful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of going, I get having people behind me kicking my seat and making noises and looking at phones is my idea of hell, right?
Yeah.
But what kind of evens it out is the experience of going in. It's usually with the kids or with the family.
Yeah.
And getting seats at the back, picking our seats,
Mm-hmm.
having the experience of getting something to eat and going for lunch after, as much or even more so than the movie.
So it's essentially making a day of it.
It's a sense, it's doing something meaningful, but it's based around a certain thing that in itself can give a nostalgic feeling.
Okay.
So that's a much more complex meaning than the one in
it's probably in the fact that there's not been much in the cinema that I wanted to go and see.
Well, there is that.
Yeah.
That's a point, right?
Yeah. Last thing I went to see in the cinema was Oppenheimer. That was what, a year ago?
But is that a budgetary thing? Like, is it a thing because it's too easy now? There's so many options just to do straight to TV or straight to
maybe
to the budget. How do you make something that's attractive enough to drive people to the cinema?
Is it because that is still there?
Is it the excitement that's maybe gone about? Like I said, you had to wait. It's seeing like big screen stars, or we said about pop stars, rock stars going to concerts. Is it the fact that celebrity as a whole is completely meaningless now?
It's been diluted so much.
Tim Dillon, I don't know if you listen to his podcast. It's a plug for his. Is really, he did this one. Oh, he's hilarious, by the way. But it's about the meaning, how celebrities are meaningless now unless they have a product. So celebrities have gone full circle. Just to merely be a celebrity, it doesn't mean anything, because celebrities are made overnight by going on reality TV shows or what have you. It's so the meaningfulness about being a celebrity is gone, which is why they're all now producing, having products. So going, fuck, what can I do? I'm a celebrity, I'm a multi-millionaire, but it doesn't mean anything. I need meaningfulness in my life. I'm going to make a product. I'm going to promote coffee.
We're back to content again, because if you go back to whenever there were true celebrities, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I guess, especially from the movies, that did they have perfumes named after them and so on? Did they have content?
That's what they were. No,
they were. But now there's so many of them. There's an overflow of, and there's plenty of space for them all. There's slight. There's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if this fits. I'm recalling. Because we were talking about music, and that seems to be a common nostalgia for a lot of people. Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd, the guitarist in Pink Floyd, once made a comment that he was jealous of all those 14-year-olds who got to listen to Dark Side of the Moon for the first time, because he never had that opportunity, because he obviously produced it.
Because he made it.
I don't think any 14-year-olds ever get the opportunity to listen to any music for the first time anymore, because it's all streamed. They never have that experience.
That's the same point. It's exactly the point I was making. It doesn't. It takes away. I do it every day. Every day I add new songs. Every single day I add new songs. I listen to less albums than I ever have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to listen to more. I know, Andrew, you still do, but I was an album guy. I would listen to albums based on artists. I now listen to songs and do it in reverse.
Yeah.
And I'll sometimes then say, all right, I'll go check out an album. Is it because there's less going into to album production now? Is it more about the song because of everything's being streamed?
It's funny you say that, actually, because Anne-Marie showed me a video yesterday of a woman complaining about music, and essentially the club night is disappearing because there's no music for it, right? There's no music for a club night. But what she explained was music is now being made for something, like an actor or a TV show or a movie or something like that. And there's more of that than ever. Before it was kind of, the song was already made and the album was created and published, and that was great.
And then it'd be used for something.
And then the movie thought, what, this might fit here.
Yeah, got you.
Now it's the other way around. So songs are not to be listened on their own. It's to sort of be as an accompaniment to something else. And that's kind of annoying. More and more songs are being discovered from me because Anne-Marie shows me a TikTok and it's got that in the background.
It's interesting.
And that's actually really annoying. To be honest, honestly, there's a song called something like "Season Sticks" or something like that. I don't know the name of it, but honestly, it's on almost every TikTok that she's shown me, and I hate it.
And it becomes an earworm.
Yeah,
and then you find out about the artist.
I've never heard of him,
as opposed to the other way around. I get that.
Yeah,
I wonder if the artists give a shit.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I do wonder that. Well, Katie Tunstall did. A lot of them do. For example, they want to be like Paul Weller. He won't use his songs in random stuff, and there's a lot of people that won't. So I don't want my songs used in.
I don't even know
the Beatles for ages when they were under Paul McCartney. He didn't. So we wouldn't have. We don't want our songs used in ads or
I don't know if they've got much say in it now. I don't.
Yeah,
it's hard to control.
A lot of these artists are selling their back catalogues, I suppose.
True. While they've got the opportunity, while they've got any value, and it's going to be time sensitive in terms of when artists can sell their back catalogues.
So we keep talking about music. So here's a question for the two of you. I read last week that whoever the three of them that are left in Queen, Sony Music are offering $1 billion to buy Queen's back catalogue. Now, if you were Brian May and you're at the age you are and so on, you might take your share of that $1 billion and sell all that. And part of me, I have no nostalgia for Queen music whatsoever. I've heard it enough. I've had enough. Doesn't really do anything much for me at all anymore. So I would say, Brian May, sell it, get your cash, $1 billion, and move on. I don't know what you guys think about Queen. Are you nostalgic for Queen?
I wouldn't say nostalgic. I quite like the music.
I'm a bit of both.
Okay,
but again, it's about my nostalgia for Queen.
Can you be nostalgic?
I'll tell you why. Because the movie Highlander, which Queen did the soundtrack for.
Okay.
The first time I watched Highlander was with my cousins. I can remember where I was in the house. We had great childhood going down. They had restaurants and pubs around about London and spending time with them. So I remember that was one of those movies. We all love movies. That was one of those movies I remember watching the first time there. And then I knew about Queen. My dad was a big Queen fan. But then in the back of that, listening to lots and lots of Queen songs. Does that count as nostalgia? Well, maybe not so much about Queen themselves, but
I don't know if you can be nostalgic for Queen music. I like Queen music, right? And then I watched the movie Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh yeah,
right. Brilliant movie, by the way. If you've not seen it, is it Rami Malek that plays him?
Yeah,
Freddie Mercury. Absolutely brilliant.
I preferred Rocket Man, by the way, but
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't?
I have not seen it yet, so it is on the list. Don't get but I
really,
haven't seen it.
You've mentioned one of the most annoying movies of all time.
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man or Bohemian Rhapsody?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Really? I liked it.
There's a great section in it where they do 1985 and Live Aid and so on. That's very well done. I give them credit for that. But it's all out of sync.
It might well be.
It's still in the wrong order.
In all honesty, Andrew, I wasn't there when.
Well, for those of us, this is where it's nostalgia. For those of us who were there, it's really important that we get the nostalgia in the right order.
Oh, I'm sure. But like I said, I don't think you can be nostalgic for Queen music, right? So I liked the Queen music before I saw the movie, and then it sort of reignited it for me because I realized the songs were really good. And also, you kind of in awe of Freddie Mercury being, probably the best frontman ever. But the fact I don't think you can be nostalgic for Queen music is because it's still around.
Is it still there? I knew where you were going to go with that.
It's still here.
Okay.
So I think for it to be nostalgic, it sort of has to, you have to have a fondness for it, but then it sort of needs to fade with newer generations, if you like. So I came back to the first thing I mentioned was Friends. Generations, 17, 18-year-old, they don't like it. For various different reasons. They don't like it. Maybe they've got too much other shit to go and watch.
My daughter loves it.
Yeah, well, there you go.
But Friends is still here.
Yes, but the fondness for it's gone.
Okay.
And I don't think that's the same with Queen music.
See, I don't know about...
I don't know anyone that dislikes Queen music.
I don't know anyone dislikes Friends.
Oh, me.
Apart from you.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things it's that everyone has a friend or someone they know that it's impossible not to like.
I'll tell you why I don't like it. Because I watched it for the first time about 4 years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh, I watched it at the time.
I did not watch it at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you're coming from a different...
I don't like it. No, I don't like it.
The first time.
I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. It was, it was funny. Like, it's exactly what it should be. But I'll never comprehend the love for it that people have.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it.
I get that. Do you know that's maybe down to that part that again back
You gotta
when,
watch it when it
back in the
comes
day.
out.
Yeah, you're waiting for an episode to come out.
Exactly, and it it was the biggest of its time. It's probably still up there with the biggest.
Without a shadow of a doubt. The fact it's generational.
Yeah,
the amount of
absolutely.
people that,
I mean, it's up there with the most watched TV shows ever. But
yeah,
like, I'll never understand the burning desire to watch it as some people do. But that's because I didn't watch it at the time. It's the same. Here's a bit of a bombshell for you. I think you'll be surprised at this. I've never seen Star Wars. I've never watched it. I have no idea why.
What, like, just
Any of them?
What? None of them.
I have never seen any of the Star Wars.
What the fuck? You can't have not seen.
I've
Star
never
Wars.
seen it.
What are you talking about?
I've never seen it.
For those of you who are listening at the moment on Spotify, perhaps rather than YouTube, the look on Craig's face is extraordinary.
It's got a lightsaber there.
I won that. Well, no, sorry, I didn't win it. I earned that from my
Out
job.
of principle.
I know I should. When it got delivered, right? Because I earned it for doing really well at my job, right? As a few other people did as well. But then I arrived and Amory went, "Do you not just want the money?"
You can't get past this. You haven't seen
I
something.
think, see, that's quite interesting
never seen
because when Star Wars came out and they had Close Encounters and so on, I remember you went to the cinema to see, you queued up to
Yeah,
get
you
to
queued
the
at
cinema
cinema.
to
Oh,
see
don't
these
get me wrong.
things.
It's a big deal. Like,
And you kind of looked in awe a bit at what was going on. If you look at them now, you think, well, it's a bit tin pot in the way it's all put together.
That's true.
Compared to,
that's exactly
what
true.
happens these days. But actually, there was, because of what went before, which was even worse in terms of tin pot-ist, they were extraordinary. But the stories were just cowboys and Indians, really, weren't there? There was nothing.
It was.
Yeah.
Remember when they released Return of the Jedi? So what year would that have been? I'll tell you.
80?
Okay.
Something like that?
Oh no!
No, I don't know which ones that is. I know that the first one was in like 70s.
That was New Hope.
Do you want a great nostalgia story? Okay, this is a ridiculous story. Interestingly enough, if my memory serves, when Aliens came out, it was premiered in Aberdeen.
Oh, no way.
And Justice Mill Lane used to be a cinema there.
Was it
The gym on Justice Mill Lane. And they had a just after midnight showing of Aliens, and that was the first time it was shown in the UK, as I recall. So the place was absolutely rammed. Everyone queued outside, down the hill. Place was rammed. And you know that famous scene in Aliens where the beastie jumps out of John Hurt's stomach?
Yeah.
The beastie. From the back of the cinema came this voice, "Reasons to be Cheerful, Part 3," which was an Ian Jury song that was at the top of the charts at that time.
Great song as well.
And it completely devastated and destroyed this tense atmosphere in the cinema. Thank you, Aberdeen.
The Odeon. There's a nostalgic.
I'll tell you, yeah.
My dad took me in to see Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
And this is when, obviously, there weren't mobile phones, because we're talking the early 80s here. 83 it said it released, so it would have been 83, 84 that would have been a cinema. I'm not that old, so I would have been like 5 or something, 4 or 5. My dad took me in, great, but they were playing at, what he failed to tell my mum, is that they were doing a special back-to-back Star Wars-a-thon in the Odeon.
Yeah.
Right? So let's go in and do these. And then there was a realization.
It was like 6
Shit,
hours.
your mum. Oh, yeah, it was like 6 hours. Your mum had no idea. She thought it was to take cinema. She'll think that something's wrong.
Oh,
Having to go to the phone box in between the movies, the phone box round the corner of the road, to phone my mum to say, "Look, I forgot to tell you, we're going to see all 3
oh
movies."
my God.
Which the amount of money that must have cost my dad in hot dogs. and popcorn.
Unreal.
Yeah, I have no idea. But
Well,
you see like
that's a good
posters and
nostalgia one,
everything.
because
That's a
I
great
took
nostalgia one.
Yeah.
I went with my eldest son to see the Star Wars when they revamped them in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Well, I went back in with my dad to see all the new ones.
And because he
And my
hadn't
son.
seen them, the originals in the cinema, and
Keep it in the family.
didn't see them. I think
Yeah.
the phone call one is quite. I'm getting
That's quite
nostalgic.
funny.
Phones for red
Phone boxes. Yeah. It was a red
Because
phone
they
box.
had a atmosphere of all to themselves. Those red phone boxes. We used to have
Absolutely.
codes, so we didn't pay. We used to agree a code that we'd phone around our friends from the phone box and let it ring twice and put the phone down, so they'd know that we were meeting in a certain pub in the next 15 minutes.
Oh, I enjoyed that.
Brilliant. I used to reverse the charges.
Yeah. Going back to your...
Now, there you go. There's going to be literally millions of people listening to this podcast.
I have no idea what we're talking
What
about.
do you mean by reverse charges?
Oh, of course, you'd
Oh,
be able to
God.
phone someone up, or you phone the operator,
Yeah.
and I'd like you to reverse the charge call to such and such. It was generally home to tell
It
your
was, yeah.
parents that, look, you were obviously going to be later than when the lamppost came on, but the reason why, and it would be some made up reason.
Yeah.
So then your parents would have to accept the charge call, be even angrier, one, that you're late,
Cost them.
and two, that it's cost them a phone call, to pay for a phone call for you to lie
Yeah.
to them and tell them why you were late. So that kind of explains
True.
reverse charges.
It is true. Yeah. I think your modern equivalent would be in TV. They phone prison phones you.
All right.
That's the only... You see it in TV a lot.
Sean, you might want to say, just to the listeners and viewers, that you haven't actually spent time in prison, just in case they now think, what...
Nah, we'll leave it there.
We'll leave it there. Okay.
I want to go back to the Star Wars thing to alleviate your shock value on the reason why I've
I'm
not
still
seen
struggling.
it. It's because by the time I got round to eventually getting time to go and watch it, I already knew the story. I knew literally everything about
It's
it.
still not an excuse. I've read Lord of the Rings twice and still saw all the movies.
Yeah.
And then the extended versions on DVDs.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's something that I've thought that I need to go and see. But we've mentioned it. One of you's mentioned it about listening
there's
to
a person that shows
listening
front
to
door.
yeah, it's a cool camera. Listening to something for the first time. Was it Pink Floyd that you'd mentioned that about?
Yeah.
I've not seen Star Wars for the first time, so
Well, that's going to have to be a first time.
I'll let you.
By the time the next
I'll give it a
podcast,
go, and I
you need
will
to do it.
But do you know, then what happens is that if you go with somebody who's seen it, who's nostalgic for it,
Mhm.
they are just annoying.
I'll watch it myself. Don't get me wrong. I will.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea,
That's
actually.
a really good point.
Because they
actually.
just really are annoying.
Yeah.
And I'm probably one of those folks. Oh,
I
you'll
would
love
be
this.
as well.
But this
I
is a
would
great
be as
bit.
well.
And the people are saying, I tell you, the worst experience sitting watching a movie through here of that nature. I bought a DVD copy of Blazing Saddles, which
Oh, Mel Brooks.
nostalgically,
Yeah.
I remember being quite funny. And
It was really.
that didn't
No.
work out well because
Oh,
it's not
didn't
funny
age well.
Was it well? See, is it
Just not funny
is it
anymore.
honestly not funny anymore, or is it just that you feel like you shouldn't laugh at it anymore?
No, I
that's
have
a
no
good
problem
point.
with that nonsense because there happens to be a black man in it and there's lots of racial references. I have no problem with that. It's actually just not funny anymore.
Is it not? Because I
Weird.
remember it being really funny.
Okay, that's
It's
interesting. That's interesting.
It's just
So
not
essentially, we should just let the fantasize, romanticize it in your head.
So just
Leave
leave it in
there.
your head.
Well,
well,
So
you
maybe-
said
is that
something,
the takeaway
Sean.
here, Andrew?
You should say something. I mean, we all agreed that it's about being meaningful. I think there's a rarity value as well of these things. But also, you said, and they're gone now. And that's where they should remain, gone.
I think so.
Because then you remember them with some degree of favour and happiness.
Yeah.
So is the
It's like
takeaway to
meeting
leave
heroes and
nostalgic
things like that.
things?
You should
Yeah.
never do that, you know?
Someone said that. So is it you leave these nostalgic experiences, leave them as that, because if you try and revisit it,
You're
Mm.
gonna
builds
go-
the nostalgia?
Yeah,
Yeah,
is
you're going
that
to be
what-
disappointed. Or
I think that's true, and I'll give you one of my last examples. Is I missed my Motorola Razr phone. You know, the flip phone.
Oh yeah,
So I bought one off at
and it
eBay.
was shit.
It wasn't shit, but
It was, wasn't it?
it just doesn't do what I want it to do now.
what your Samsung does. That's the point.
Well, that is the point. So, but what I will say as well though is I'm gonna join the older group here and say the younger generation. You know, if you're 17, well, 18, 19-year-olds, they're bringing flip phones and cameras
Yeah.
out,
Yeah,
clubbing with them now.
I know. I
I
know.
have no idea why.
Isn't it weird?
so they're taking separate
Old-
cameras from phones with them.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I saw a
They're
thing about that as
taking
well.
flip phones, and they're taking, well, I wouldn't call them disposable cameras now. They take digital photos and stuff.
Yeah.
But they're doing that now, and I think it's to stop being distracted. It's the best I can make out of it is to go and experience the night.
That's a good thing.
You've just used
So-
the word experience. I think that's right. It is back to, okay, I'm not going to harp on about vinyl records, but it is, there's got to be other things going on. Digital
so.
stuff is pretty flat and uninteresting, but if you can pick up, a camera, suddenly you're interacting with it. And you remember those days when you put film in to get developed. If you do you had to wait for that, and you found out the reel of 24, only one had actually come out because you had your thumb over the lens.
Do you know, or something. I wanted them for my wedding. Actually, we were going to put a bunch of disposable ones on the table, but they're really expensive.
They are. But that's a nostalgia thought. The disposable cameras, they were great because you would wait and see what the photos turned out as.
You had to, if you wanted to take photographs, and as you said, films are expensive and they take a time and so on. You had to think, well, is this the moment I press the shutter, or should I wait a bit, or should I frame that better before you press the shutter?
Yeah.
There's a wonderful quote, I'm going to forget who this is from a photographer who says, just because somebody's got a Nikon camera doesn't make them a photographer. You have to do more than that.
There's a bit more to it.
Great photographers of old had limited film, so they had to make it count.
They had to make it count,
make it count.
Well, it's not how to work the light and all the rest of it, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
You see people walking about with all these huge, expensive cameras. And I bet it doesn't make a blind bit of difference to an iPhone because they've no idea how to work it.
No, it's true. It is true. So I think we've summed up nostalgia pretty nicely.
It's quite a nostalgic episode, actually.
Yeah, but we've got to leave it.
We'll look back in a few years. Remember that episode that we did? Wasn't it great?
I remember them as being better than that.
Let's just not listen to it.
Yeah,
that's great. That conversation was brilliant.
So I think we're going to wind up nostalgia for now. That's enough. Just for those who are listening, we have been and forever will be Four Walls in your head. There's going to be a Four Walls website up, folks. fourwalls.org.uk. Go and have a look at that, and you'll find some more information on our podcasts and events. There's going to be Four Walls events coming to a town near you.
Love it.
They will be memorable.
So live in the present, everyone. Don't look back nostalgically. Have a great week.
I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to add anything to that. Thanks, guys.